My doctor says my heart is fine, and I told him, "Doc, I just need a little recharge." He laughed and said, "Just don't blow a fuse." I told him, at my age, that's not the problem. Have you ever felt that way too? It's been 3 years since my husband passed. Every morning, I still brew 2 cups of coffee out of habit more than need. That second cup's been going cold for 3 years, but I just can't stop making it. Maybe it's not the coffee I miss. It's the company. I water the plants he used to tend, talk to him when the house feels too quiet. Sometimes I wonder if hope still lives somewhere inside me. This letter came from one of our listeners. She asked to remain anonymous, but her words carried a weight many of us understand. When you lose someone you love deeply, the world keeps turning, but your heart takes much longer to catch up. Grief changes the color of everything. The sunrise looks different, the kitchen feels emptier. You go through the motions because that's what people do. You smile when the neighbor waves and says, "How you holding up?" You say you're fine. I told my neighbor I was fine. She goes, "Honey, that's code for miserable." I smiled and said, "Then I must be fluent in it." Sometimes humor is the only language we've got left. Hope doesn't come waltzing through the door. Sometimes it's just the quiet decision to get out of bed one more morning, to brush your hair, to open the curtains. Hope doesn't ask for applause. It just slips in quietly when you're not paying attention, breathing softly beside you. I remember talking to a gentleman at our community center. He lost his wife after 52 years of marriage. When I asked how he was managing, he paused before answering. I don't get excited about big things anymore. Hope for me is just seeing my porch light come on every night. It means I made it through another day. I told him that counts as cardio for the day, flipping that light switch. That's right, porch light cardio, 0 calories, all hope. He smiled at that, and I realized humor is still the best medicine we've got. Another woman told me she still sets the table for 2 every evening. She knows her husband won't be sitting there, but setting that extra plate gives her something to do with her hands. It keeps the routine alive. I still wave at my husband's old recliner before I sit down. Sounds silly, doesn't it? But it makes the room feel less empty. Hope's that old friend who always saves you a seat. It doesn't demand you be strong all the time. It's patient. It understands that healing isn't linear. Some days you move forward, other days you take 10 steps back. That's all right. When you've lived as many years as we have, you learn something important. Life doesn't always give you the endings you hoped for. People leave too soon. Dreams change. Your body slows down. But even when life feels like it's slowing down, hope doesn't have to disappear. It just changes shape. So if your heart feels tired today, take a breather. Sit by the window and just watch the clouds drift by. Let yourself feel whatever you need to feel, because hope isn't something you force. It's something you allow, and maybe that's where hope hides. Not in the big miracles, but in the small, stubborn routines that keep us human. Speaking of small things, finding hope in small moments. Hope doesn't pound on your door. It just slips in quietly through the smell of morning coffee, through the sound of rain on the roof, through the way sunlight falls across your kitchen table. If you're looking for hope in the big moments, you might miss it. For most of us, hope lives in the small, ordinary things that make up our days. A woman in Florida wrote to me. She had a stroke that left her unable to dance. Before that, she and her husband danced every Friday night in their living room. After she came home from the hospital, she thought those days were over. But one Friday, her husband put on their favorite song and held out his hand. She told him gently, "I can't dance anymore. You know that." He smiled and said something she'll never forget. "Then just move your hands. That's enough. I'll do the rest." So she sat in her chair and moved her hands to the rhythm while he swayed beside her. Hope doesn't have to look the way it used to. It just has to be there, in whatever form it can take. After my knee surgery, I couldn't garden anymore. So I just started chatting with my plants. They never talk back. That's why I like them. Small moments carry us through. The taste of your favorite soup, a soft blanket on a cold night, your grandchild's voice on the phone. These aren't grand gestures, but they're proof. Proof that life is still giving you reasons to stay present. One gentleman told me he keeps a gratitude journal. Every night he writes down 3 things he's thankful for. Some days the list is easy, other days he has to dig deep. But he always finds three, he told me with a smile. Sometimes my list says, found my glasses before lunch. I said, you deserve a medal for that. He replied with a grin, make it big enough so I can see it next time. That made me smile. Hope is a practice, not a destination. You water it like a plant. You tend it like a garden. And some mornings, you'll see a little green shoot. That's hope, growing quietly. My grandson asked me once, Grandma, what's hope? I told him. Hope is what makes me buy bananas even though they won't ripen for 3 days. He said, that's deep, Grandma. I told him to write that down for his essay. Forgiveness is part of keeping hope alive. Not just forgiving others, but forgiving yourself. For things you didn't do, for words you didn't say, for time you think you wasted. Carrying all that weight makes it hard for hope to breathe. A lady once told me something I'll never forget. I forgive myself for not being a morning person. I've earned that right at 78. And honestly, that sounds better than any alarm clock. A friend spent years regretting she didn't travel more when she was younger. Then one day she decided to stop punishing herself. She couldn't fly to Paris, but she could visit the local botanical garden. She couldn't hike the Rockies, but she could walk around the block and notice the flowers. She told me quietly, hope isn't about doing the things I missed. It's about doing what I can right now. And that's more than I thought. Kindness is another doorway to hope. When you do something kind, even something tiny, you remind yourself, you still matter. Your presence still makes a difference. One man started volunteering at the local dog shelter after he retired. He said with a warm smile, dogs don't care if I forget what day it is. They just wag and love you anyway. That made him smile, and smiling gave him a reason to keep going. Another woman told me she leaves cookies by her window for the mailman every Friday. Says it's her way of saying, still here, still baking. So if you're looking for hope today, start tiny. That's where the magic hides. Make your favorite tea. Call someone you care about. Sit outside for 5 minutes. These moments won't solve everything, but they'll remind you that life is still happening. And when you start to notice those small things, something shifts. You stop chasing happiness. You start letting it sit beside you, quietly, like a friend who never left. Hope is the quiet light that stays. Hope doesn't shout. It's that little hallway light you leave on so the dark doesn't win. As we grow older, hope isn't always about big dreams. Sometimes it's simply about tomorrow, about believing the sun will rise again, that you'll wake up and have another chance to feel something good. One of my favorite stories comes from a friend who lives alone now. Her children moved away, her husband passed. For a while, she struggled with the silence. Then she started a new habit. Every night before bed, she gets the coffee pot ready. She calls it her little deal with tomorrow. If she still wants coffee, tomorrow's still worth showing up for. A friend told me once, if I wake up tomorrow and still crave coffee, life's good. I said, and if the coffee tastes bad, that's life's way of keeping us humble. She smiled at that. The little routines, they carry more meaning than we realize. Buying groceries for next week, planting flowers in the spring, leaving the porch light on. These aren't just practical things, they're statements of faith. They say, I'm still here. I still believe there's a reason to keep going. Hope also lives in the people we remember. When you think of them, when you talk to them in your quiet moments, you're keeping their light alive. And in doing so, you're keeping your own hope alive. A listener told me she talks to her late husband every morning while she makes breakfast. She tells him about her day, the grandchildren, the weather. It makes her feel less alone. Hope isn't just about moving forward. It's about carrying love with you as you go. Some days hope feels strong. Other days it feels fragile, like a candle flickering in the wind. That's okay. You don't have to feel hopeful all the time. You just have to keep the light from going out completely. If your heart feels tired tonight, let it rest. Sit in your favorite chair, wrap yourself in a blanket, close your eyes. Resting's not giving up. It's just plugging back in. And when morning comes, when light seeps through your window, you'll realize you never lost hope. It was right there beside you all along, breathing softly, waiting patiently. Hope's that bit of you that still believes people are good, that still looks for beauty, that still reaches out, that still says yes to another sunrise, another cup of coffee, another chance to feel something good. So, if you're wondering whether hope is still alive inside you, the answer is yes. It's there in every breath you take, in every memory you cherish, in every small act of care you give yourself. Hope doesn't abandon us. We just forget to look for it sometimes. But it's always there, quiet, steady, waiting. So tell me, friend, what's keeping your spark alive today? Maybe it's the way the morning light hits your window. Maybe it's the sound of birds outside. Maybe it's knowing someone out there is thinking of you. Whatever it is, hold on to it. That's your thread back to life. Dear friend, thank you so much for being here with me today. Your presence means more than you know. Your one subscription keeps this little radio warm and alive. If this touched you, leave me a note. I'd love to hear your story. Tell us about a moment when hope found you. Let this space be where your heart can rest for a while. May you find hope in the smallest things. May you remember that you are loved, even in the quiet, and may you wake up tomorrow knowing that your life still matters, that your story isn't over, and that hope is still here, waiting to walk with you into another beautiful day. Till next time, take good care of that heart of yours.